Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the genuinely fascinating psychology behind why some people are choosing to completely stop posting their lives online. You know, we live in an era that practically demands constant visibility. So when someone actually steps back from this whole performance economy to reclaim their own personal authorship, well, people notice. And honestly, they often get a little suspicious. But what's actually going on in the minds of the people who just opt out? Let's unpack the hidden psychological mechanics of choosing to stay private.
First up, Section 1, The Birthday Party Divide, A Tale of Two Guests.
To really get this, let's look at a deeply relatable anecdote from a small dinner party about 12 guests that hits the nail on the head. Imagine two very different approaches to living in the moment. On one hand, you have a guest with over 8,000 followers who spends the entire night completely glued to his phone. He's angling shots of the food, checking his story views, literally running a countdown. The result? 8,000 total strangers got this highly curated, altered perception of the night, while the 12 actual people sitting right next to him got, well, barely a fraction of his attention. Now contrast that with the unplugged guest. No phone out, fully present. He actually engaged with everyone and even remembered specific details from conversations they'd had months ago. It perfectly illustrates this massive core tension, capturing the moment versus actually living in it.
At the end of the night, the birthday host quietly made this incredibly profound observation about the highly followed guest. They said, "I don't think he was really there." That single sentence is just so powerful, right? It sets up the exact psychological mystery we're exploring today. You can literally be physically present in a room, but cognitively and emotionally, you're miles away, performing for a completely invisible audience.
Moving on to Section 2, Why People Actually Leave, the Uncomfortable Truth. We really need to dispel this popular myth that highly private people are just perfectly evolved beings meditating on a mountaintop somewhere. The truth? Leaving social media is often a really messy act of self-preservation. It usually happens when the gap between someone's actual real life and everyone else's shiny highlight reel simply becomes unbearable. Sometimes it's triggered by a breakup or a severe period of depression. Or think about vulnerability that just goes totally unrewarded. Someone posts something deeply genuine, it gets ignored or totally misunderstood, and it leaves this painful residue. Sometimes people just get burned by the machine and make the completely valid choice to walk away.
But here's what's incredibly validating. A few weeks after they leave, the initial friction and that intense fear of missing out, it fades into this peaceful quiet. It's almost like a buzzing background noise you didn't even know was there, suddenly gets unplugged. And when you ask them about their absence from the online world, they almost universally echo the exact same sentiment. I don't really miss it at all. They suddenly realize they basically hadn't heard true silence in years.
Next up, Section 3, The Cost of Content, The Science of the Quiet.
What's really fascinating here is the hard data backing this feeling up. A study published in the Journal of Consumer Research found that anticipating sharing an experience actually makes you enjoy it measurably less. Seriously, let that sink in for a second. This study is absolutely brilliant because it proves that the mere mental act of preparing to document something before you even pull out your camera or write a caption literally cannibalizes your real-time enjoyment.
Let's break down exactly how this happens in your brain. When you try to live a moment and simultaneously package it for an audience, those two cognitive actions instantly go to war with each other. Your brain literally cannot fully process the rich, emotional resonance of the present moment while it's also trying to act as a producer and editor for your followers. The unavoidable outcome? You're left with a much shallower memory and way less emotional attachment to your very own life experiences.
Which brings us to Section 4, Private Self-Consciousness Explained, the psychological framework. If you have ever opted out of visibility and faced that reflexive suspicion from people thinking you must be hiding something, this next concept is going to feel so validating. Enter private self-consciousness. This is the psychological tendency to focus inward, examining your own thoughts and feelings rather than obsessively monitoring how you're being perceived by others. This official psychological term proves that being a private person isn't some weird defect. You aren't hiding a secret. It's simply a deeply attuned way of interacting with the world where your sense of self stays perfectly stable all on its own, without constantly needing a hit of external confirmation from an audience.
Think of it like two totally different internal operating systems. The inward focus asks, what do I genuinely think and feel about this? It's deeply grounded in reality. The outward performance, on the other hand, constantly asks, how does this look to others? One system is checking for genuine internal feeling, while the other is basically running this constant, exhausting, battery-draining background check on external perception.
Now for Section 5, the real social cost, friction versus connection. Look, we have to be honest here. Dialing down this outward performance creates a very real social trade-off. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's a distinct short-term cost. You become much harder to track. People can't just passively watch your life unfold on a screen anymore. Because of that, a lot of those low-effort friendships quietly dissolve through neglect, simply because that easy, superficial touchpoint is gone. And yeah, that friction can genuinely hurt at first. But long-term, you reap a massive benefit. Because the people who actually make the effort to text, to call, to make real plans, they turn out to be an entirely different category of friends. They are the ones providing the deep connections that actually sustain us.
And that brings us to a really important number, 80. The famous Harvard study of adult development tracked people for over 80 years. And what they found consistently, decade after decade, is that the depth, not the quantity, of your close relationships is the absolute strongest predictor of long-term health and happiness. Remember our unplugged guest from the dinner party? The one who actually remembered everyone's details? He's the living embodiment of this data. Quality will absolutely always outperform quantity when it comes to human connection.
Finally, Section 6, reclaiming your life's authorship, the grand takeaway.
People often assume the ultimate goal of logging off is just to find some mental peace. But actually, it's about something much deeper. It's about reclaiming your authorship. Authorship is that profound feeling that your life belongs entirely to you. Older generations remember a time when ordinary experience had a texture that didn't need to be captured just to count. Reclaiming authorship means taking back the ownership of your daily experiences, your quiet moments, your meals, your walks, your thoughts, the very things you've been unknowingly outsourcing to an audience for years.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative question to really chew on. Are you the author of your life, or are you outsourcing it? The next time you find yourself in a beautiful, quiet moment, ask yourself who that moment is really for. Thanks for joining me today. Keep learning, keep questioning, and go reclaim your authorship.